Welcome to Drive for Service, a podcast to inspire higher quality of service. Welcome everybody to Drive for Service. My name is Melania Battison and I'm the head sommelier and wine buyer at Medlar Restaurant in Chelsea in London, and next to me, David O'Connor, the co-owner and restaurant manager of Medlar Chelsea.
Hi everyone.
And today we have another superstar on the show. And David, would you like to introduce our guest?
Yes, so joining us from the Bahamas today is one of my favourite managers I've worked with, one of the very best maîtres, Jacques Carlino, who used to work at the Square restaurant back in its heyday. Welcome, Jacques.
Welcome.
Good morning, good morning. Well, morning for me, for sure.
Good morning to you.
Nice and early.
What time is it in the Bahamas?
9 a.m.
What time is it over there?
9 a.m.
9 a.m.
Well, good
9
morning
a.m.
to you.
So it's still nice and bright
Jacques,
early morning. Not too hot yet.
Looks good. The sea behind you there.
Yes. We're lucky. We got that beautiful scenery every day. So, and you know, you don't get bored of it. That's the amazing thing. You would think that year after year of seeing the same, you get bored of it. But the truth is, every day the ocean looks different. And so it's a different beauty every day. You know.
Very nice. We'll come and see you one day, yeah?
For sure.
Hopefully.
So, Jacques, can we start with your career story in this industry?
Yes, it's a long one. It's been a little while, you know. I started when I was 15 years old. So when I started, actually, when you have to make your decision at school of what you want to do, I've always wanted to be in a restaurant business. That was really my calling. My brothers were already in it, and that's what I wanted to do. But my mother thought it was not a good idea. We already have enough in the family, and the school thought that I was very good in mathematics, so they decided I should be an accountant. And so after a couple of years of accounting school, I got extremely bored. I could not picture myself being an accountant. That's one thing I could not picture. And I decided to quit, and I went to start an apprenticeship. So apprenticeship, you know, I work, it's a lot of work and little school, and school was not really for me in any case. So I think I did more missing the school than being present at school. But when I miss school, I would go to work. It's not like I would miss school to go and play around or do anything. And I've done my apprenticeship. Then from there, it was a small restaurant, not fancy, but very family orientated, understanding people, only regulars. So it was a very interesting stage of my life, very young, you know, so they were like my second parents almost. And then from there, I started working in nightclub because apprenticeship don't pay anything. So I would finish at around 11 midnight and I would go and work in nightclub as a bartender until 5, 6 a.m. in the morning, and I'd be back to work the next morning for 8 a.m. It was a crazy life for over the weekend all the time. And I've done that for another 2 years before moving to Geneva. And in Geneva, I went there working for the Noga Hilton at the time, which was a very exclusive big hotel with a stunning view over the lake.
Yeah.
And I'd done 1 year, and after 1 year, I realized I needed the English. Without the English, I couldn't communicate in Geneva. Everybody spoke English, even so it's a French-speaking town. So I applied for Hilton. I was with that group in London, in Spain, and in Germany. And both offered me a job, not both, the three of them offered me a job, but I picked London to go first because that was for the English in the first place. And I went to England. I did 1 year, which was my goal, to do 1 year. I started as a bartender very quickly. We're talking back in 89. So
Yeah.
I always say it was sort of the start of the revolution of the food industry and even the wine industry in London. And I became the sommelier, the buyer for Hilton, where I was. So I had the opportunity of doing many amazing wine trip. The company Hilton Group bought from a big wine merchant. I don't know if they're still around. It used to be called Anthony Byrne at the time. And Anthony Byrne had the hookup with everybody. And I had the luck of going to have lunch with Dujac, the Desmet family, you know, the Dujac. I had Georges Roumier. I tested with Georges Roumier in his little garage in Burgundy. I went to Napa Valley in the Carnero. I mean, I did some amazing trip being wine buyer with Hilton at the time, you know. And from there, I went back to France. I thought I had enough of England. I got to go back to France, and that was the Gulf War. And I was supposed
Right.
to start working at the Royal Club Evian, but it didn't materialize because the Gulf War started. That was February. The Gulf War started, and I found myself for the first time in my life without a job. And I eventually found a job at the opening of a casino in Annecy, where I was assistant head bartender, and I just didn't enjoy it. I didn't like the French mentality
Yeah.
anymore. And I went back to London, and I came to London. I did the opening of the Langham Hilton at the time. That was 1991. And I stayed a few years there. And from there, I decided to start opening my own little place. So I opened a little bakery shop opposite the Chelsea Hospital on Fulham Road. And I did that.
No way.
So it's really, I'm across the range in my career, because it was an interesting path. And from there, it was a franchise. And as a franchisee, I felt I was working for the franchisor. I made no money, and I worked all the time. And I moved from there, and I ended up at the Pont de la Tour, where I met Patrick. And I started at the Pont de la Tour as assistant chef sommelier. The chef sommelier at the time was Jean-Marc Hurlière. And I've done a few years, and I was approached to do an opening of a restaurant, the Green Olive in Medieval, as a restaurant manager. So I moved to Medieval. From Medieval, I moved to with Gary Holyhead. Don't know if you know, he was a Michelin star chef at the time. And I came back to Marylebone. Oceana, the restaurant was called, with Tony Kitous. And I had a good experience, and that's where Nigel met me. Nigel saw me there, was good friend with Tony, and I think he liked my style. He must have liked my personality, and he offered me a position. And at the time, it was a position of number 3 at the Square. So it was the new Square in Mayfair. And I decided to accept it. It was a challenge. I had never done Michelin star restaurant, so it was a completely different challenge for me. I recall before really taking my decision, I had a chat with the general manager of Georges Blanc in Vona, which is where I was born in Vona. It's a 3 Michelin star and is now the oldest 3 Michelin star in France. And I was raised in that town. I have never worked there, but Frédéric, the son of Georges Blanc, is a very close friend of mine to this day. And so I went to talk to the maître to ask him his thought, because I was a little bit not sure. Is it for me? What am I ready for something like this? I think I heard in one of you chat with Silvano talking about the maturity and the time you got to accumulate experience. And certainly, I think it was definitely a time. I'm not of the generation of Silvano, but I'm the next one after, which is a generation where you didn't work for the money. You didn't work for the money for many years. You worked for creating experience. That was number one, know. And when I went to see Marcel Perinet, his name is in Georges Blanc, he told me, Jacques, he said at the time, I think I was going to turn 28 at the time of the Square. And he said, Jacques, you're like a sponge. You took on informations, and he said it's time to go on, throw yourself, and start giving back a little bit. And that's how I took the position with the Square. The position, we have time, but I can talk plenty. But the position came with an interesting anecdote, and I don't know how much you like anecdote. I don't know if you remember, David, or if you heard of it, because he had made a lot of noise at the time in London. It's when I accepted the position with Nigel. One day I was at Orrery, and Orrery was Patrick's restaurant, when in Marylebone, and I was having it was the opening. I was there. It was pre-opening where he invited guests, and I was having dinner there with a friend. And Patrick came to me at one point of the evening, and he said, Jacques, I got Marco on the phone. So by saying Marco, it's enough to say at the time, Marco Pierre White, we're talking back in 97, was the biggest man in town. And he said, I
Yeah.
got Marco on the phone. And I think it might have not been too much time of cell phone yet. So he called the main line of the restaurant. How did he know I was there? I have no idea. To this date, I still don't know how he knew. But I go to the phone and Marco Pierre-White saying to me, I want to see you right now. I said, I can't see you right now. I said, I'm at a restaurant. Frankly, I think I've drunk a little bit too much and I'm not in a state to go and see anybody. And why? I've never met the man. I had never applied for a position with him. So it was very weird. Then I get the call. But I went anyway, of course. I finished my meal. I went there and I showed up at our room at the time, half drunk, with a cigar in my hand. And Marco Pierre-White was sitting there waiting for me. And he made me an offer. And he made me an offer. He said, I know you're going to work for Nigel. And I think at the time it was still a little bit of friction maybe. And he made me an offer. He said, you pick the restaurant, general manager. I will double what you've been offered. Come and work for me. And I must say, it must be one of my career's most, excuse my French, screwed up experience in my brain because I just didn't know what to do with it. I was extremely confused. I left that meeting. I didn't sleep all night. He told me, you got to call me tomorrow. I called Nigel the next day, and I said to Nigel exactly the story. Nigel told me, Jacques, you got to make your decision. I am not budging from the position. I'm not budging from salary. You got to make the call of what you're going to do. And I thought hard, and I thought to myself, that man don't know me. I've never applied for a position with him. The way he can call me in, he can throw me like an old sock the next day and just do it purely politically for some reason of wanting to upsetting somebody else, you know? And so I decided, I picked up the phone and I called Marco, and Marco he said, I just don't want to hear one word from you. I said, well, I don't think it's going to be the word you want to hear. I said, I'm going to stay with Nigel. I'm taking the offer of Nigel, and maybe one day I'll come for you, but right now is not the moment. I have committed myself to Nigel, and that's my word is what I'm going to keep. He was so pissed off. He said to me, you will never work again ever in London. No, I don't work in London. Nothing to do with Marco. I went on to have an amazing time at the Square. I loved every minute of it. I had an amazing relationship with Nigel, with Phil, and I've never regretted 1 minute of my decision. And all this to say, it's when you're young, you certainly cannot look at the money. I went on to make more money than Marco had offered me, and within I think 3 months I was general manager of the Square. I went from number 3 to number 1 very quickly. I was aggressive, I was young, I was hungry, and I believed that the Square had so much to do. The Square had an amazing chef. He had an amazing Nigel. The spirit of Nigel was incredible in his business life, his commitment, you know, the way he thought. I've learned a lot from these two individuals. I learned enormously, you know, and amazing years. And then from there, in 2007, my now wife got pregnant, and and she said to me, she said, oh, maybe one day we move to the Bahamas because she was born here. And I said, and it was not likely. I said, well, you know, one day when, in a few years, what will happen is that I will not know my child. I work all the time. I'm always at work. And my child will grow up 1, 2, 3, 4 years, and I won't know who he is, you know. And so I made the plunge, and it was a very difficult decision because I was very happy. I had been given the opportunity of becoming a co-owner in the Ledbury, as you know, David, you know. So I had bought into the Ledbury. I had an amazing job, an amazing life, and I knew everybody, and everybody knew me. And that was the biggest leap of faith is when I left the Square and came to a city where I had never been. I had never been to the Bahamas. Nobody knew me. It was like restarted. I was 38, like a brand new, fresh things that it was, you know, for the ego, it's not easy because you go from everybody know me, you're the big guy, and you go to a city where nobody
Yeah.
knows exactly who you are. And I took 2 years sabbatical to understand the country, to spend time with my son. That was the most important. So I spent 2 years with my boy. I sent my wife back to work, and I stayed at home. I was the mummy at home. You know, I was going to the school. I was at the time, it was not many of the daddy mummy, you know, and I was one of them, always my boy
Yeah.
on my arm. And for a couple of years until I decided to start a little something to keep me busy, and I started doing cooking classes for children. I was all into children, and so I started doing cooking classes, and that was very successful. I had a lot of fun. It was not so much for the money, it was for the fun of passing the knowledge, you know. And I had little ones from 3 years old to 10 years old, and I would have 5 classes a week. I had done a little studio at my house at first, and 5 classes a week, and we did anything. We did from doing a crepe to doing a cookie to doing a pasta bolognese or a boeuf bourguignon. We did it all. I really took it all the way with the kids, and it was fabulous, you know. And from there, and I'm almost done, I went on to open a little shop, and I did a French patisserie with plat du jour, and that became very quickly very successful in a part of town that everybody said I would fail, because everybody was east of the island, and I went west of the island where apparently nobody was there, and I would still do my 80 people every lunch, you know. And that was a very successful but very small, where I worked like a dog. And then I went on to open my second restaurant, which was into one of the rich area of the island, where he actually didn't prove to be as successful as I wanted. I made a French, classic French, and it was not understood. The French food was not understood. But on the back of it, I had done a very big outdoor bar with a nightclub feel, and I had DJs playing, and that was the party place of the island for many years. And then I got that place where I am came on the market, and I was looking at that place since I arrived in Nassau. It's a beautiful place. It's one of the unique locations. You got to imagine that Nassau, unlike the south of France or Spain or Italy, where you got the beach and you're gonna have one restaurant every 50 meters, it is not like this. There is 3 restaurants on the ocean. There was 3 when I started. I think we now 5, but there is very little number of restaurants on the ocean. So it's quite unique, and this is certainly on one of the most beautiful strip of of beach in Nassau, and close to Bahamas, which is one of the major hotels on the island now, 2,500 bedrooms. And I've been here for the last 10 years, and doing very well. Beautiful place, you know, seeing this every day. So that's in a nutshell,
Wow.
a big nut.
Amazing story, Jack.
I wanted to ask you, Jacques, if so you said that before you were a sommelier and then you move on to a restaurant manager. How come did you shift? Did you make this move?
I tell you, I went into sommelier because my thought was there is 2 lines in a trade. You go to the wine trade or you go to the floor trade, as in classic service. And the classic service is a longer stretch, is more a step to follow from commis to demi-chef de rang to chef de rang at the time. Okay, maybe it's changed today. And I got to up those steps gradually. But then I had the opportunity to shift into wine. I have always loved wine, and I always, it is one of my passions today. I collect wine, and I love it, you know. And I just thought it was an interesting fast track to go through the lane into management. So I found myself at the same level as assistant manager very quickly, you know. And when the opportunity was right, from when I was at the Pont de la Tour, I was offered to move into back into management of a smaller restaurant, but he was, I forgot the name of the chef. He was a French chef, but he was very talented at the Green Olive. We did beautiful work, and the owner was, he was, and I don't get he was somewhere in the Middle East, and I won't say the country because I don't want people to get, I could say one and it's the wrong one and they can't stand each other, so I don't want to get into politics, but he was a very good man. Bijan, his name was. And he was a very good man, and he had a few restaurants. He had the Red Pepper, he had the Green Olive, I forgot, they were all vegetable name, and food was good. Food was very good. We were very busy, interesting wine list. And so that's when I went into restaurant manager and stayed in that track thereafter. But I always had a love for wine, because at the Square you could not have a love for wine. With Nigel's dedication and the team we had created. I mean, I had an amazing team under me with at the Square. You know, I mean, David worked with them. They all amazing individual, all very different, from the very serious Frenchman to the more casual Frenchman, because we had two. Christopher was a very extravagant, extrovert individual, you know. But you had James Payne, English, very British, very proper. You know, they all were amazing in their own way, and I think he complemented a beautiful team when he came to service and to choice of wine. You know, it was a really teamwork, and people tested together. Opinion were valued of every individual. So it was very interesting part on the wine part.
Yeah, I mean, that brings on to our next point, Jacques. In your view, the importance of service?
You know, importance of service is very important in a restaurant. Now, the views are very interesting now that I'm on the other side of the pond. It's actually very interesting. It's very different this side. I came into this trade with very classic training. When I learned, you had to know how to fillet a fish in front of the customer. You had to know how to carve a duck, how to carve a chicken, to do a lot of things, which I know in your previous discussion, I've all lost, unfortunately. You see it here. I mean, I was in a restaurant in Miami last Saturday night, and I ordered a bison steak tartare, which they come and do, very flamboyant at the table, but really it's the meat is already banged onto the plate with a raw egg and a massive wood board, so it looks fabulous, but really all he does is mix it, dump it on your plate, and off you go. It's no skill. But this side of the world is actually very different. The skill are not the same. The skill is a people skill. When you go to the US, they're amazing with people. You cannot knock them on this, you know. They have a motivation which we have lost in England and even here in the Bahamas, where you put an automatic service charge. Those people, if I could ban automatic service charge, I would do it. But the problem is I would lose all my staff because nobody else would ban it. So my staff are with me. They do very well because we're a busy place, and they do the service is automatically added. But in the US, some places now in Miami and in New York are starting service charge, but still for plenty of places, service charge is not the norm. And therefore, the waiter has to work very hard at what he does. And it is more of a people skill than technical skill, if you see what I mean. When in Europe, we were trained classic. When I moved to the Square, it was a time where Michelin star restaurants were clinical. And my background was not Michelin star at the time, and so I didn't have that clinicalness. I had my love for the profession. I had my love for the... Hold on. I let them pass just in case they were louder than me. I had my love for the profession and good work and good food, but I was myself in the dining room. And I had a chat at my children's school last week for Careers Day, and I made them laugh because I said in many ways I was very camp. And it might not be diplomatically correct, but I mean, I was borderline. People could think I was gay. Because a woman would come in, I would tell her, I love your handbag, I love your shoes. David, you know, I was not your classic formal guy. It's not like I would stand 2 meters away from the table. I had my hand on the table, talking to people in their face and having a real conversation. And I think that broke the ice. So we were very exclusive to Michelin star with amazing food. But the dining room, we ran it professionally, but friendly. Because you go to some restaurants...
Yeah, I mean...
Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just about to say, I mean, yeah, you're one of the best I've ever seen at doing this, at working the room. And it brings us on to the next point about looking after regulars and creating customer relations, which is something that I've certainly taken from you in my own business. But let's go back to the Square. where you were in your element, let's say. I mean, your thoughts on creating those relationships?
I just think you have to be yourself. I think you have to be yourself. The people, you have to welcome them and be genuine. And I think that's what I was trying to be, always genuine, honest to the customer. Get out of your way to please them, to do everything you can. I might sound in some way like Silvano, because like I said, he's old school, and I believe in old school. You had the way where your customer is number one. You have to do anything you can to please them. Remember who they are, remember the name. And at the time, again, it was before electronic. We had no computer. The only computer we had was brain. And if you remember, I still have it. A Financial Times had done an amazing article on a few Maître at the time in London, and it was like the brain of the Maître with the different things in each part of the brain, i.e., the name of the customer, the children's name, what they do for work, who they are, what they like, what they dislike. We didn't have computer, so he made the Maître way more important. Today, I can take a Maître out without sounding terrible, and put anybody who opened the computer and said, "Oh, Mr. Smith, you've been here 20 times, and you drank DRC last time you were here." You know, you can do exactly that. But at the time, it was more. It was much harder for a maître d' to know all that. You needed a great reception team. Your receptionists were important. I mean, he had more of a teamwork. He don't take one person. He take a multitude of people to make it amazing. Because one person, I say it to this day, I'm nothing without my staff. My staff are the one who are here day to day. It's not me day to day who's crafting the dining room anymore. You know, they got a team. So you rely on them. So now the profession, you got to pick the right people. And at the Square, it was like picking the right element for the right job that's going to do it at best. So you don't have to worry about it. Once you pick the best maître d', the best head sommelier, the best sommelier team, they're going to do an amazing work, and they're going to help you remember the customer and the customers like. But it's extremely important to look after those people and make them feel good. Ego stroking. Everybody liked the ego stroke. And these big power people we had loved the ego stroke. But then equally, because we were a big restaurant, you had the young people who would come, the young waiter who work in a little restaurant in the country, and he would come and spend a whole month's salary into having one meal. And that's where you have to remember, okay, I know my big shot, I can sell him the big expensive white burgundy, but this is my little man, and I want to give him, if he want to spend £30 into a bottle of wine, I got to give him the most amazing bottle of wine he can have for £30, and the best experience, because it's almost more valuable than the one we eat every day in those restaurants. The company pay for it. It's just, so you have this, and you still have it, I'm sure, today. It's exactly the same. It's very important.
Yeah. Any questions?
Not for now.
So yeah, talking about that team at the Square, it was an amazing team, as you mentioned. Thinking back at the time at the Square, how did you used to build and motivate your teams? I was part of one of your great teams, but now I've been a manager, it's on the other side. So what was your thought process at the time and even today?
I would judge people by what I saw in them on the floor. As you know, we had plenty of people coming from the best school in France, and with the highest exam that you could have in France. They were never the best. Truthfully, they were never the best. Because they were green, and they were trained to think, I got to be a manager. They were not trained to come and think, I'm on the dining floor and I'm going to look after the customer. So it was really down to seeing the passion in each individual. And I would say that once you put the people together, the combination gelled very well. I think it was an age bracket that was very nice. I believe we were, and I say we were all friends in and out of work. So we all came in on the floor, and it doesn't matter how much we let our hair down the night before, everybody was there on time. I could see
Yeah.
if I would arrive to work and I would see any of my guys a bit late, I would them running to work. They knew you could not be late. So I was privileged because I had people who understood play hard, work hard, because I believe I was a nightmare in a restaurant. I think I was a real pain in the butt. I would have tantrum like a child when I would go in the dining room. If I seen one drop of stain of water on the cutlery, I would go completely crazy. I'm sure you remember that. I was I was a bit of a fanatic. I was not. I don't think I can say I was always nice, but people respected. And I had one goal, and one goal was to do it right. And everybody wanted to work in line together with me and the rest of the team. We had one goal: let's do it right. Let's do a beautiful work. And that came with. It wasn't about me. It wasn't about you. It wasn't about. It was about the customer and doing it right for the customer. And I think that's what I was privileged, and everybody had the understanding of that. At bottom line, I think, Nikki, give me a favor. Tell them to stop. Tell them to take a break. Thank you. Sorry, the blowing machine. So I think it was very important to this in the team. The picking was really, I think you would go and find when you were at Orrery, your time came, you were ready. And I used to talk frequently with Patrick and with a few other friends. And really, when we had a good element, we would eventually people had to go because you were in the same spirit than I was when I was your age. It's like I want to gather those information for a couple of years being in this place, and then I want to go and see the next guy because you will have learned some important information from Patrick. You came to learn important information from me, and you went to learn from somebody else, and eventually you put everything in a shaker, you shake it all, and you make your own style. And I think that's exactly what was happening. So the interest of all of us in a position, in a time, in management position, was to make sure that the good element stayed within a close circle of friends. And we made sure to pass each other the good element. So I would give a good element to Patrick, he would give a good element to me. And that made that he, like you said, I think in your introduction, right on the first episode, is I didn't even ask you. Once I knew where you came from, I know, that's fine. The guy is going to be fine. Besides that you were the only breed, and we couldn't understand much of what you said on the floor. Yeah, that was the only problem.
Yeah, the Liverpool accent back then.
And it was a big difference. I mean, this was David at the time. He had plenty of hair.
That was my haircut, I think.
I'll never forget that. I think at the time the most important thing in his life was buying gel.
I think he used to say something about my hair almost every briefing, but no,
Yeah, I think so. I'm pretty sure, I think we could have spiked lemon on it or something, like a lemon display.
Yeah, they're great times now.
So basically, to motivate team, were you finding this balance between, as you mentioned, like work hard and play hard at the same time?
It's important. I mean, I'm not going to say I said play hard every night. Of course, priority was work hard. But we had a moment, and we had a moment. We would go for a drink and all relax and enjoy talking. And generally, whenever we would get together, it was always around food and wine. Anyway, it's not like it was really what everybody was passionate about. And to this date, I think all the guys. In this crew, I was lucky to see. I don't think you were there, David, but at the wedding of Romain, we had a nice group, and it was beautiful to see. You were not there, huh?
No, I couldn't make it.
Yeah. And so everybody was there, and it was amazing. To this date, everybody's doing very well for themselves. They still have the same passion. I think passion. That's where it starts from. That's number one. It cannot be, like I say it often, my son is at the age where he got to start to think what profession he wants to do. And I'm saying, don't pick, you got to pick what you're going to love. I have done my profession all my life, and I've never got bored of it. I've never seen myself pictured myself doing something else because every day I woke up, I really love what I do. And I'm lucky, my hobby, I don't play golf. I could play golf where I am, but I don't play golf. I love reading about wine, buying wine, my cigar, and food. This is my passion, which all relate to my profession. So I've been privileged in my life to work in my passion, and I don't think it's given to everybody, but it's certainly, I think you feel like it's work without working, you know?
And do you think that when you can install passion to someone, or you can teach them?
I think you possibly can. I won't say to everybody because I don't know your market of today in London. It's a very different, I think, to when I was there. I think I spoke to Nigel the last time I spoke to him. He told me, Jacques, not the same anymore. It's just completely different than it used to be when you were here. I think maybe people are too much money orientated, and don't get me wrong, money is extremely important. You need money to be happy, but it cannot be all. You got to do it because you love it. Can you pass on passion? I think there is some of these things you either have it or you don't have it. Unfortunately, I think there is sadly still a lot of people who will wake up every day in our profession and don't want to go. Genuinely, I think it will happen, and maybe even more today, because I can see, I don't know how it is in London, but one of my brother owned 2 restaurants in France, and it's hell to find good stuff. It's hell to find people who want to go to work in the morning. Everybody wants the job, but people don't want to work in the evening, they don't want to work the holiday, and they don't want to work the weekend. And you know what? When I started my first job before I signed my contract, I remember my mom was sitting next to me, and the first thing my boss, then my future boss, told me, he said, now, before you sign the paper, remember one thing. Forget about the weekend with your friend. Forget about the evening at home. Forget about being at the holidays with your family. None of it will happen. You be at work, you be at work, you be at work. And so I was brought in understanding that very well, and it was no joke. That's exactly what it is. It's now, to this date, it's exactly what it is. So too many people don't want that anymore. They rather go and work in a factory or do some boring job and be happy. They think they're happier. Are they really? No, I don't think they are. But they don't know better. But I think if you show enough motivation and dedication, people can catch on. You know, we spend plenty of time. I must say, at the Hilton Group, I've learned one thing, which I much prefer working for individual restaurant than a hotel. But however, in the Hilton Group, it was one thing which was interesting. It's training. Lot of training. Those big companies were big on training, and so I was part of a lot of training, and then I was part of giving a lot of training. I had a whole portfolio of training every week, and at the time there was silly training from the terms of cooking to the liquor trolley. With the liquor trolley, each Grand Marnier, what is it, where it come from, and we were drilled with that. And at the Square, we still did it. The cheese trolley will be at every briefing, and it was like, what milk, what region, is it washed down? Everything was so much detail, and you drilled it in people and build the special and the menu. It was like an interrogating. We had written interrogation, and people, if they didn't do well, would go in detention in a private room. You remember, David?
Yeah.
People would be in detention. It was like, next time you got to do better. You know, I still do it with my, not as hard, but I give them questionnaire every now and then, you know. But now you would go and put somebody in detention because they do bad. People would say, that man is crazy. You know, we could do things then that you cannot today. You know, when I was a young lad in my profession, if I did something bad, I would be kicked up the ass. Kicked physically, not just in thought. And you know what? You learn and you don't do it again. Now you can't do it. Now you can't do it. I don't think it's for the better. I think a kick up the ass every now and then, nothing wrong with it. I'm sorry, but I don't think it's Sometime maybe we need more today than we did that then because we were more understanding. She's gonna think
Yeah.
I'm crazy. You see that?
No, 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 absolutely no. It's, I just started realizing how much as everything has changed, and yeah, yeah, basically.
So, Jack, can you go back to the role of the sommelier and your thoughts on wine service in general?
The wine service, it was always a little bit something where I feel the front of house staff. So okay, the whole front of house, the wait staff and the wine staff. The wait staff would always
Yeah.
be maybe a little bit jealous because you had a relationship with the customer that the wait staff didn't
Yeah.
have the same. The wait staff would come to the table, you would put the food, you would explain, and you would move along. But if you spend too much time at the table talking, I'll be the first one behind you to say, "Yes, move on now. There's more people." When the sommelier was very different. You spend time talking, it was chit chat. It's just a completely uh, different way of service. And I think it's important. It was finding the right balance. I've always believed you've got to find the right balance of how much the customer wants you. Not everybody wants you at the table. You know, I was at Trois Gros last summer when I was in France, and it was too much. You know, I believe sometimes less is more. I don't want every single employee of the restaurant coming to ask me how was your meal, because if you ask me so often, you must think that it's not good. You must worry about it. You, the person, the maître d', the chef de rang who's looking after me, ask me when you clear my plate, how was your meal? But I don't want to be interrupted every minute by somebody to ask me, and especially in those restaurants, there's plenty of staff. At Trois Gros, I felt that it was somebody at my table interrupting my conversation with my wife every minute. That was actually annoying. So you got to find the right balance. So in a restaurant, you cannot have everybody to go. And I think the sommelier is the one really which got a bit of that exclusivity because he's got to be there understanding what the customer wants. He's got to be smart. I think you had that conversation already, but it's the smart sommelier. I'm older and I'm more confident and I don't care too much what people think. So if I go to a restaurant and I want to spend $50, 50 euro, I'm going to say to the sommelier, okay, I want to spend 50 euro. Give me the best wine on your wine list for 50 euro. And if I have a smart sommelier in front of me, he's going to say, I respect that man for being honest with me, and I'm going to go and dig out the best wine I can find for 50 euro. It's not about the most expensive. It's never like this in life. If I want to drink an expensive wine, I drink it at home because I don't want to go and spend $500 and $1,000 or £1,000, whatever it is. It's all the same, really. It's just the country sign change in front. But I don't want to spend that sort of money when I'm out. When I'm out, I have generally a cap. My cap will be like in the 100. And it can be dollar, euro, pound. That's where I'm going to stick. That's where I want to be, you know, unless I really see, like once in Champagne, I saw they had a Salon 82 and it was an amazing price, I remember, compared to what we had it on the wine list at the Square. And I said, I would normally not spend that sort of money, but that's too amazing to not be spending it. And also there is something to be said about having it in a great establishment and all beautifully by your sommelier, because it's never going to be the same when you do it home. So it's something special about it. But the role of the sommelier is very important because he can, you have the menu is the menu. The menu say the price, it can be a la carte or it can be a set menu, and you know you're going to pay £50 for your food. The wine is where the sommelier will make the restaurant look honest or dishonest. I think if I'm showing if I'm telling the sommelier my price and still with my price he take me to a wine at $100 and at $200, I'm like, what's wrong with your brain? Can't you understand? I just told you. That's why I do it clearly. In the past, when I was younger, I would show a wine. I would say, I'm thinking of that wine and that wine. So he would see the price tag, and the smart sommelier will take you staying within this price tag, not take you 2 times more, 3 times more. I respected even more the sommelier who would actually encourage a customer to spend a little bit less. At the Square, I would tell them, don't go stupid over. Stay within, don't go stupid down. If somebody has a budget of 100, You don't want them to spend 50. It's a bit silly if the person has 100, but show him a bottle at 85, 90. Nothing wrong with it. But you make a friend. Once you make a friend, you will have customer will come to your restaurant. They will give you back the wine list and say, do what you want, because they trust you. And I think with regulars, this is the most important. Is the a person who come first time, you got to do your best, but you don't know them. But the people who come again and again and again, they got to trust you. They got to almost not touch the wine list, because you know their style, you know what they like. And if their style is white Burgundy, you're going to say, okay, I can go to some wine maybe in California and in the same style of a white Burgundy, or maybe in Argentina, but stay there, make them discover, because we're all guilty of being animal of all habit. I know I'm the first one. I take a wine list and I know where I like to be, and I like to always go the same direction. And sometimes I like somebody telling me, you know what, move away from there, go there. Similar. Don't, if I like Barolo, don't take me to drink a Malbec in Argentina. That would not make me happy. But it's the role of sommelier is very important, for sure.
Any questions on that?
No?
Nice. Jacques, tell us about your bit more about your current business.
So like I said, once I settled where I was, in 2010 actually, when I still had my little place, the first little bakery, I was approached by one of the private airports to do catering for private jet. And I got on that business, which is a bit of a crazy business, but interesting, and you can do well with it. And I still do it to this date. I'm the only person on the island that cater to private jet. I look after NetJet, which is one of the major privately owned plane company, and I do all the work. We must do, I don't know, it's seasonal. The island is seasonal. We start kicking in proper from mid-January. We have a little rush at Thanksgiving, couple of days, then a little rush at Christmas, and then proper, it's by mid-January, end of January, until Easter is the big time. Then after it trickles down all the way to August, and then it dies September, October, November, dead. Even the first 2 weeks of December, they're dead. And so it's a bit of a feast and famine. You work like crazy during those times, and then it just die out. So we do maybe, I don't know, we must do a couple of thousand private jet a year, which is quite a lot, because they're very demanding. So when you're talking of demanding customer, they're extremely demanding. They're flying on their own plane, so the service, it might be just a service that you don't see the people, but it's still extremely, you got to be on the ball, the timing, those planes got to leave on time, you got to deliver on time. So that's one aspect, which represents maybe 30% of what I do. And then Blue Cell has become a lovely institution. People love coming here. We go from wood oven Napolitan pizza. So when I opened, I flew in a Napolitan chef, and he was working in Geneva. He was working for my brother, and he was the world championship at the time of pizza. He had won the best pizza world. And so he came here for a month. He set us up. He put us on he helped me create the pizza list, so we do the wood oven pizza. And then I've opened with Bahamian food and Mediterranean style of cooking. And about 3 years ago, I've always loved sushi. I've always loved sushi, but I always believe, because in Europe, my way was, if you're French, you cook French food. If you're Italian, you do Italian food, and if you're Japanese, you do sushi. And so I always felt I can't do sushi. I'm not Japanese. And here, it's not like this. You do what you want. I can do Greek food tomorrow if I want to do Greek food. So I built a little kitchen, completely separate. I built a shack on the beach with a little kitchen for sushi. And so I got a couple of Asian chefs who do each kitchen is different. My pizza chef are different from the main kitchen. Sushi chef are different. So I got altogether about 15 chefs working here. We open 7 days a week, all day. So you can come and at any moment of the day, because the one beauty, I would say, we don't finish late in the evening. but we wrap up by 9, 10 o'clock. We generally wrap up because people want to come for the sunset. So you can have in season, I can have 200 Americans showing up, all of them between 6 and 7, all at the same time. And by 8:30, you come in the restaurant, you're like, wow, that restaurant has nobody. It must be very unsuccessful. But we already did 200 people in like an hour and a half. It's crazy. For the logistic of service, it's madness because our menu is quite large. I have never liked big menu in my life, but here the demand was for a bigger menu. So I had to do a big menu, and the pressure in the kitchen and on the service is tremendous. It doesn't matter when you do 200 people in one go. It doesn't matter how many people you throw at it. They will clash. It will clash, you know. So that's a very hard logistic to do. And the team, I got a lot of people who've been with me for a long time. You know, my oldest employee has been here for 11 years now. So people stay. People stay in place if they're happy. I think if they do well financially, you know, they stay with you. And there is a core of people who are around me all the time and understand very well where we want to be and what we try to do. And then there is, of course, a satellite team that move in and out, you know, younger people who look for a job, you know, it is a busboy, etc., and they come and go. So it's really managing to keep everybody on the ball and doing what they do. But that's basically what we do, you know. The restaurant is a full-on and continuous thing, continuous day. You know, we go from at lunchtime, you'll have people that are on the beach. There is 3 steps to the beach. You just walk here 3 steps and you're on the beautiful white sandy beach. And so we got people on the beach and they come up. We associated with an hotel which is just behind us. And so the hotel has about 80 bedrooms. And the beach is private. So the customer spend the day, they come up in the swimsuit, guys in the short, ladies in the bikini, they come at the bar, order the cocktail, go back. So it's really a mixed crowd. And then next to it, you're going to have some business people having lunch. And you got the people in bikini next to it. So it's an interesting, you know, it's a vacation place. It's a vacation place. But let's not forget, there is a lot of people working on the island. It's a very, very buzzing island. It's incredible, the investment that I brought on here. And hospitality is the biggest thing of the country. The country rely on hospitality. That's all we do. We used to do banks and hospitality, and because of the Bahamas being blacklisted, we lost many of the major banks. And hospitality is the biggest earner of this country. During COVID, we suffered very hard because the island was shut down proper. Nobody coming in, nobody going out. For like I think 3 months, and that was hard. That was very hard. But this is what we do. The island is all about hospitality.
Amazing.
I see. And Jacques, you mentioned before about being a bit of a fanatic, and one of your non-negotiable, I guess, is you don't like people being late.
So what are your main?
They could tell you, my team can tell you. I get them, they can get sent home 2 weeks home with no pay if they're late. I don't like lateness, and I don't like lateness for one simple thing. It's if you're not there to do the job, somebody else has to do it for you. And you don't do it to me, you do it to your colleagues. You don't piss me off. You're doing it to your colleagues, people you work with, so it's disrespectful. And I can understand lateness. In London, I used to say, people would tell me, take me an hour and a half to get to work. I would say, leave half an hour earlier. I don't care. That's not my problem. You're supposed to start at the time. You be on time. Here, you know, we're not far from anything. Let's not forget our island is 20 by 10. So I have even less patience for delay here because I'm like, there's no excuse. And my staff are listening to me. They're around me. But, you know, they're going to show up late, but yet they're going to have the McDonald's in the end. You know what I'm saying? They're late, but they still have time to go pick up the breakfast. So you cannot imagine. I'm knowing the old... Yeah, it's McDonald's, not Pret à Manger.
And do you have 2 others non-negotiable that you like to share with us?
I would say it should always be about the customer. It shouldn't be about us. You got to put customers first and customer what they want. I think that's number one. And so maybe my two would be customer and customer.
Okay.
And don't be late.
And?
Don't be late.
Yeah. And don't be late. Amazing. Shall we do the firing question?
Yeah, quick fire round. Go on then.
Right. So we're going to do probably 5 questions for you. And we would like you to answer with either like a short sentence or just one word answer. So the first question would be, as you love wine, I'm going to start with this one. What is your, Bahamas wine?
Desert island
No,
wine.
desert island wine.
Okay, desert island wine. I think I would have to be Piedmont, Barolo, Barbaresco. That's I think it would be my favorite. I don't say that because
even in the sun.
You know, I'm Italian. You might not know, but my parents are from Naples.
Ah, so you were happy? I know, yesterday. Sorry, I feel we need to cut this one out.
I was born in France, but my older sister was born in Italy. We're proper Italian at the root. And I go every year.
I didn't know that.
I love Italy, you know. It's definitely, I love the wines.
Yeah, I agree. And the second question is, what is your lazy dinner look like?
A plate of pasta. But a plate of pasta with my mother's tomato sauce. My mother is going to be 92. A plate of pasta with a simple tomato ragu. That takes 2 hours to make. So is it easy? You better make it in advance.
And Jacques, who do you admire the most in our industry?
That's a tough one.
Oh, hello?
Oh, no.
Oh, we lost him.
I'm boring and say, I've always admired Nigel and Phil enormously. I had great respect for both of them, you know. But when I started in my career, I would say I worked with an Italian guy. He was in his 70s, and he was the assistant manager. He was the most flamboyant Italian man I've ever met. And I've learned a lot from his style. I love this style. He could grab the flambé trolley and just go make a steak Diane in front of a customer. He was just incredible, the style. And I think I would say I've learned a lot from him, his style. An old Italian chap with years and years of having seen everything in London. And that was quite amazing. So,
wow. Good.
And what about outside the industry?
Oh, outside.
Anybody that inspires you?
You know, I said one yesterday. I said to Vanessa one, and she said, "You can't say that." Vanessa is my wife. I said, you know, I've always is a bunch of people, but you know, one guy I read his biography many years ago, and I really thought it was incredible. It's Arnold Schwarzenegger. This man
it's
has
interesting
gone
you
to
say
the
that,
top.
Jacques.
He's been to the top of
That's really
bodybuilding, to the top as actor.
that's really interesting you say that.
You too?
No, I totally agree because I've always admired his movies, everything when I was growing up, but I hadn't realised how inspirational he is until I read his book and listened to some of his speeches, and they are unbelievable what he's done in his life. It's incredible. He's very inspiring. Totally agree.
I like him.
Yeah.
I like him. I like his life. It's an incredible life.
Yes, I agree. Amazing.
Good.
Next one.
And the last question is, where...
Say again?
I tell Vanessa she won't think I'm that silly for saying Arnold Schwarzenegger.
No, I totally agree. He's very inspiring. Best service experience, Jacques?
You know, I had a great experience 2 years ago. I was in San Francisco at Queen's.
Mm-hmm.
Queen's is a 3-star. It was the service was incredible, but not because of the technicality of the service. The lady, maître, who looked after us was just incredible. She was so people person. So it was it's 2-part to service. So that would be my best, I would say, when it comes to this. After, when I go to technical, I think I've had a great experience when you go to Paul Bocuse. is such an old school. And I was there, I remember, because before Bocuse passed away, and he come and grabbed me, and I'm a lad from the region, and he said, come with me. And he took me all across the restaurant to Madame Blanc from Georges Blanc in Vona. And he go to her and he said, this is a kid from your village. And she said, yes, I know that. He was such a man and such a character. And the service, they had it drilled for years and years of doing it exactly the same way. No side way.
Yeah.
Wow.
Anything else?
That's it.
Jacques, thank you very
so
much for your
much,
time,
Jacques.
and it's been
Sure.
absolutely
It's a lot
brilliant
of
listening
fun.
to you today.
I think I
Been
love
brilliant.
what you guys doing, so carry on.
Thank you very
so
much,
much,
Jacques. See you soon. Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thanks.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to Drive for Service podcast. Follow us on Instagram @MedlarChelsea and make sure you like and subscribe for future episodes.